This MMA 30 video is brought to you by Cheaterville.com. Don't go down without a fight.
Nick, you talk about not wanting to do these occasions. Has this week's busyness around the event got in your way at all in terms of your mental preparation for fighting Carlos on Saturday night?
I'm pretty mentally set. I think if anything, it taxes your physical preparation on account of just time and dealing with these people, and then press and everything, and time and dealing with what you normally be dealing with. So it's a little extra work, but I'm pretty much the same, always.
Can you give me your thoughts on Nick Diaz, his evolution? I mean, he's been doing so much media. It's almost a complete polar opposite of what people expect of him. He's doing an amazing job. I mean, can you talk about how he's been doing so far?
Yeah, I think that, originally when he first came back to the UFC, he'd been out of the UFC for a few years, and there's no doubt that there's a big difference being in the UFC and being somewhere else. People don't realize the workload that everybody does. There's tons of media. There's all kinds of other things to do. It's not just about. I understand guys want to focus and focus on their fight and train, but when you're in the UFC, there's a lot of other stuff that you got to do, and it's a pain in the ass. It's not fun to do, and like he said today, which is absolutely true. It's taxing on you physically. It really is. And but I can tell you this, the response for this primetime has been phenomenal. People are loving this primetime, and if you haven't seen it, you should probably check it out. It's one of the best we've ever done, and I think Nick's getting into the groove.
For Nick and Carlos, over here, in theme of talking about how the media and attention has been emotionally and physically taxing, I'd like to know how you're doing, what you're doing to unwind and relax right now, what your hobbies are right while you're here this week. And Carlos, did you bring your kid out here?
No, I didn't. He was out here for the last fight, and having a 1-year-old running around when you're cutting weight isn't all that much fun. But I'm just relaxing. I love fight week. Training camp's over. I'm excited to step in there and do what I've trained to do for the last 6 some odd months. So I'm just enjoying it. And having fun in Vegas, and just getting ready to do the thing. Literally, I'm not doing anything. Like I'm doing my workouts, I'm doing my media, and I'm just relaxing in my hotel room and focusing on cutting my weight right now.
It's pretty much the same for me every time. The quicker I get through these days here, the quicker I get to go home.
A question for Dana. Could you talk a little bit about Nick's evolution as a UFC personality and kind of his role in the UFC?
I don't think he has a role or there's been this evolution. I think Nick Diaz is who he is, and even before he came back to the UFC when he was in Strikeforce, I mean, one of the things that I said since day one is I don't want Nick Diaz not to be Nick Diaz. There's people out there who love the way Nick Diaz is, and there's people out there that don't like him. Doesn't matter either way, as long as people care one way or the other. But I think that one of the things that bothered Nick was that a lot of the way that people think he is or thought he was isn't the truth or the reality. And like you said in this episode of Primetime, it's like I'm getting ready for a fight, and this is how I prepare for a fight, and this is the way that I am. During fight week and at the fights. And I think a lot of people have learned a lot about Nick Diaz over the last 3 weeks. But I've never, I don't think Nick has evolved or anything else. Unfortunately, there's things that we have to do, press conferences and PR and all the things that we don't want to do, we have to do. But as far as who he is as a person and who he is outside of the octagon, I think people got to see that over the last 3 weeks.
This question is for Carlos Condit. Carlos, how do you see your fight going down with Nick Diaz? Both of you guys have fan-friendly styles. How do you see it going down?
Well, I get, I expect a war. Honestly, Nick is probably the toughest dude that I've ever fought, and he's well-rounded. He has a pretty dynamic skill set, and it's pretty similar to me. We both come to fight, and no matter who wins between Nick and myself, the fans are going to win because it's going to be a phenomenal fight.
And the same for Nick.
Well, I'm sorry.
How do you see your fight going down with Carlos Condit?
I got to get out there and fight, and then we'll see. That's all I can say about that.
And Dana, a question for you. Both these fighters have earned a title shot. I mean, he was the Strikeforce champion, and he's climbed the ranks. Carlos, do you think, regardless of the outcome, eventually they'll fight GSP?
Yeah, no, it's a fact. It will happen. Whoever wins this fight, and we were saying earlier, depends on how long George's recovery is going to be, will either defend their title once or wait to fight George St. Pierre. But yes, that will absolutely happen.
Nick, did watching your brothers fight against Donald Cerrone give you confidence, given that stylistically this matchup might be kind of similar?
I think that's just a complete different fight. I think stylistically it's kind of the same, a little bit of the same scenario, but we're all different fighters.
Questions for Nick. Dana mentioned the success of the Primetime show. Are you happy that the fans and the people have gotten to see an inside of your life?
It's fine. I just I don't mind doing a Primetime show or build up or doing extra press or people coming to film me, as long as it's done right and as long as it's not, generic or something. It looked great and I felt great and everything seemed to go good, so I was happy with it.
Just a question for Nick Diaz, please. Nate is possibly one fight away from getting a title shot if he beats Jim Miller, and you're fighting for the interim belt now. What would it mean to you if the two of you were champions together in the UFC?
Can you ask me that again, please?
He said that Nate is probably one fight away from getting a shot at the title. How big would that be for the two Diaz brothers to be champions in the UFC at the same time? Two different weight classes.
Yeah, that's what we're working towards. That's the idea.
My question's for Nick Diaz. Nick, on the Primetime show, you talked about how in order to be as successful in MMA as you are, you have to love the sport so much that you hate it. Could you maybe just explain that mentality to me?
It's not. That's pretty much says it all. What I said. That's what I meant. And that's what that means.
This MMA 30 video is brought to you by Cheaterville.com. Don't go down without a fight.